I'm joined by our sports editor, Garrett, and chief writer, Rob. Guys, Saturday was the start to the 2014 Super Rugby season. That's very exciting. Why don't you recap for us what happened?
Hi, Jen. Yeah, it was off to a great start, except if you're a Cheetahs fan, really. You know, they played at home. They welcomed the Lions to the Free State Stadium. They were expected to win and win comfortably. The Lions haven't played Super Rugby since the season before last. But the Lions shocked the Cheetahs in the last minute. Their fly-off Marnitz Boshoff landed a drop goal to clinch a 21-20 victory. So a bad start for Narkadrotsky's men. They scored the only 2 tries of the match, which was good enough, I guess, for them. And the Lions were scoreless. But Boshoff, he put in a man of the match performance, landing 6 penalties and a drop to secure the victory for the Lions, who now welcome the Stormers, who didn't play this weekend, to Ellis Park next weekend. So great start for them, awful start for the Cheetahs.
I must say I agree with that. It was probably the last result that the Cheetahs wanted. I think that they were probably complacent. I saw a tweet from Ollie Leroux, who of course is a former Cheetahs player, who we know Ollie is quite an outspoken fellow at the best of times, but he was right in saying that it looked as though the Cheetahs were just sort of operating in third gear, going through the motions, thinking that they were going to bank the 4 points, and played very sloppily, especially towards the end where their discipline just went for a shower, and they paid a very, very heavy price. So they're on the back foot already.
No, absolutely. And considering they came second in the SA Conference last year, they look a long way off doing the similar thing this season. And the Lions, with all due respect to them, I still think they're going to lose more matches than they win. So that's a double whammy really for the Cheetahs, especially at home, picking up 1 point instead of the 5 that they would have probably looked to pick up, ahead of the match.
All right, and in Saturday's second game, the Sharks beat the Bulls. This seemed to go a little more to script. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Sharks on paper looked to be the best South African side, and they welcomed the Bulls down to Durban and they won 31-16, a fairly comprehensive 15-point victory. Very key for the Sharks was they picked up the 4th try and bonus point in the dying seconds of the match thanks to fly-off Patrick Lambie. So they kept the Bulls, who left without a bonus point. That's key, obviously, in the South African Conference, because the Bulls, even though they're not on paper perhaps as strong as they've been in the past, they're still a force. But the Sharks look to entrench themselves at the top of the log and look like the team to beat in this year's competition.
Yeah, I thought it was quite an impressive Sharks showing. I thought that they showed good composure. It looked as though towards the end the bonus point was possibly just disappearing a bit, but I thought they showed good stamina as much as anything, and that's where the Durban humidity at this time of the year is a definite ally for them, because they train in it all the time. This is a terrible time of the year to be playing rugby in Durban. Super Rugby starts earlier and earlier. It encroaches more and more on the summer, which is bad news for Durbanites, because of course it makes the humidity really, really energy sapping. But by training in that heat, the Sharks are really, I think their conditioning is excellent. You saw someone like Frans Steyn, who carried perhaps a little bit of extra beef last season, looking in better shape, and actually played a pretty influential game, I thought, for the Sharks at inside centre. I thought he also brought out the best in Paul Jordan outside him. So a very promising start for the Sharks, who really at an early stage have probably entrenched their position as the favourites, the clear-cut favourites to top the South African Conference at the very least.
Yeah, definitely the favourites for the South African Conference. The Stormers, who didn't play this weekend, they played a friendly against Boland and they actually lost. Granted, it was their second side, but they lost nevertheless. But the Sharks, Jake White's got them in shape. They look to be performing really well. They had 11 starting Springboks. Their forwards played really well. Their backline, you mentioned Paul Jordan, he showed tremendous speed, I thought, at outside centre. Great name to look out for this season. Perhaps Heineke Meyer, Springbok coach, has even got him down as a potential bolter, if you like, for his squad at mid-year.
I think the Bulls, it wasn't completely a sort of a lost cause for them. I thought a few sort of good things sort of flickered for them. I know they came away with nothing from the match, but there were periods of the game where it looked as though they might be up for a losing bonus point. Things like their scrummaging seems to have just improved, stabilised a little bit. They did pick quite a sort of beefy tight 5, which may have cost them in terms of stamina on a really hot Durban day. But reasonably good signs, and I thought the one perhaps sort of negative was maybe that Victor Matfield didn't quite convince as much as people might have liked when he made that sort of fairy tale appearance to a big reception from the Natal, the KZN faithful. But I didn't think he was particularly impressive. I thought he was little bit standoffish, a little bit tentative, and there's I don't know if you agree, but I thought quite a lot to do in terms of still convincing that he's the right man for certainly the Springboks later in the year.
Absolutely, he's playing on reputation, I think, at the moment, and what we remember him as this fantastic line-out king who dominated the set piece in the past, perhaps one of the 4 leading world locks, if you like. But you know, he came onto a massive reception, but he gave away a penalty, I think, in the first 2 scrums, and so it wasn't great. And the Sharks have a pretty formidable pack of forwards themselves, so they held their own. And the backline, I think, was just the difference. The Bulls tend to kick away a lot of possession. I know David Campese tweeted and on his Facebook this earlier today said that the Bulls picked on size rather and ran out a bit of steam, and they kicked away. Louis Fischer kicked away a lot of possession for the Bulls. They're clearly missing Morne Steyn, the odd drop goal keep the scoreboard ticking over. So I think the Bulls will struggle. I know pre-season we picked them to finish, I think was it 3rd in the conference, and they certainly don't look like they're going to do any better than 3rd.
That's right. Probably in general terms, in the overall log, maybe a sort of a mid-table side who might do well to just sneak into the playoffs. But I think that might be a little bit of a long shot. I think there's a lot of rebuilding to be done in the side. I thought when Handré Pollard came on, he gave it just a little bit more direction in a very short time to the Bulls. So maybe he's a very gifted player. He's only 19 still. He turns 20, I think, very shortly. But he just looked as though he gave them a little bit of an extra spark. So it'll be interesting to see whether he maybe gets an opportunity because they did have a problem at 9 and 10. I thought Francois Hougaard also didn't really deliver a good performance for the first up match in his sort of comeback, I suppose, for the Bulls.
Yeah, as you say, Pollard comes with a fantastic reputation, having played fly for the Baby Box in their World Cup winning campaign. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually starts sooner rather than later in the number 10 jersey for the Bulls.
Okay, so those are the games, but after this weekend, which players should we be looking out for?
Well, I think the standout man of the match in the first game that we chatted about was the Lions flyer for Marnus Boshoff. You know, he was on debut, one of, I think, 6 in the starting team for Johan Ackermann's Lions side. But he played with tremendous maturity. He kept the scoreboard ticking over. I don't think he missed a penalty all match. The Lions obviously relied on his boot because they didn't score any tries. But he landed 6 penalties and the match-winning drop goal for a personal haul of 21 points, which was good enough to beat the Cheetahs in Bloemfontein.
I thought in the Sharks game, Marcel Coetzee had a pretty good game on the sort of open side. You know, the whole match was significant in the fact that neither team really sort of prioritised the fetcher. We know Jake White is not a massive fan of fetchers, but I thought Marcel Coetzee put up a decent sort of lively showing on the open side. A couple of turnovers, some pretty good carries as well. Just generally looked very energetic, and that's a good sign for the Sharks perhaps.
Okay, great. And can you let us know how all of our viewers can follow what's going on in the games and share their photos via social media?
Well, the easiest way would to be visit the Sport24 website, send us any pictures you might have of you dressed in your favorite team's outfits to mysport@sport24.co.za. Join the Super Brew pool, challenge the experts if you like at Sport24. We didn't do very well in week 1, but sign up for the competition there. And for all live scoring, visit the site obviously next Friday when the first match is of week 2, all Saturday's matches, and there's even a Sunday game on next weekend.